I'm James Mathers for the Digital Cinema Society. We're here at our annual Focus on Post event. And I'm really, really stoked that we have a very special guest, Sam Restivo. Sam has been editing for Ridley Scott lately, but you know, he's also edited some movies that I shot. People want to know your career path and how you go from working on indie, low-budget movies with Jim Mathers to how you end up working with Ridley Scott on some of the biggest movies. So tell us about your career.
Happy to. Good to be here, Jim. Thanks very much, everybody. The reason... So my career has been kind of on two parallel tracks for a long time. I've been very fortunate to get to work on the big movies as an assistant for a really long time. My first job ever was in 2003 on Michael Mann's Collateral. And I spent a long time being like a post BA and then moving my way up to assistant editor and simultaneously always trying to do the more creative job. So I ended up doing a bunch of the independent low budget films to work as an editor so I could do more of the creative things. And that's where I met Jim. We did this great little movie called Break in 2010. And I knew at some point I would hope that these two tracks would converge. And I've been very fortunate when I got to work for Ridley over the past 6 years, once they promoted me on Napoleon, now it's both. Now I'm getting to do the creative thing on the big movies.
Well, tell us about your workflow, and I know you work with a partner on the editing, and what NLE do you use,
right.
And just tell us about the process.
Yeah, sure. So with Ridley Scott films, these are gigantic things, right? Where he's shooting with 10 to 12 cameras on virtually everything. And so I work alongside a legendary editor, Claire Simpson, who's one of the best we've ever had, and I'm extremely fortunate to get to work with her. I started with them on this show called Raised by Wolves that Ridley directed a couple of episodes on. And when you have this amount of footage, we use Media Composer. We still use a legacy version, but now after the demo, I think I might push Claire to try one of the new ones. But we have a few assistant editors that do a lot of heavy lifting in the early part because Ridley shoots with all the cameras, but then also at varying speeds and whatnot. So there's a lot of grouping involved. And Claire and I, on any given day, once the assistants have grouped everything, we sit and watch all the dailies together, and we usually watch it in like the 9 bank in the Avid, and we kind of take notes or we talk about it as we're watching, pointing out like, oh, that looks cool, or that looks like the storyboard, and then once we get through the day's footage, we basically just kind of break it up and say, oh, well, you take this or I'll take that. And it just goes from there. And then if there's like a scene that's going to take a few days, or one of these big action scenes where they're shooting for most of a week, the other person will be in like revising the scenes that I've already done while the main one takes the new scenes. And it just goes like that, so that on Ridley's movies also, he works at a breakneck pace on set. So we are constantly being asked, oh wait, did we get everything? Do we get everything? Do we need more things? And so Claire and I have to be up to camera, and that is a crazy challenge. That's probably the hardest thing to do, is to stay up to camera with him on these shoots. But it just means that we're ready with a full cut of the movie, usually within 1 to 2 weeks after the shoot, even on a movie like Gladiator II and on Napoleon as well.
So I know he shoots a lot of cameras.
Yeah.
That must be a lot of footage to go through.
Yes.
Like how many on the cameras on a big scene?
Right. Well, so, because obviously it's like 24 hours worth of footage you get every day. But of grouped footage, we'll say it's usually 2.5 to 3 hours of stuff per day.
Yeah, what, like dozen cameras? Or,
yeah, exactly.
Or
Yes.
More?
It would usually max out at about 12 cameras, but never less than like 8. Even on dialogue scenes. It's crazy.
You two are keeping up with him.
Yep.
And he comes and visits the edit room, I suppose. So what was the time frame like? And
right.
you were editing on location?
Yeah, so Gladiator II started in May of 2023, and we were in. They started shooting in Morocco first, so we were in Morocco for a couple of weeks, and then we moved to Malta for the remainder of the shoot. But then the writers and actors strikes shut us down in July, and we were able to keep editing for about a month. In Malta before they shipped us home for a bit, though Ridley's not one that likes to be like down on production, so he actually just switched us over to doing the Napoleon director's cut for a month until the shoot resumed. Yeah, so right. So Ridley would during the shoot. It's a crazy time. Obviously, they're working around the clock, but he comes and visits us usually once or twice a week. It's almost always on like a Saturday or something. So we're working kind of 6-day weeks during the shoot, but it's really valuable to be near the location so that he has one, like a respite from the madness of production, because it's just crazy, and we keep a really calm, chill, fun environment for him, and we can assess problems really fast by just being there versus if we were working remotely. So both Claire and I are big proponents of getting to be wherever the shoot is, and it's a luxury obviously on these giant movies that they're willing to fly us to all these places, but we wouldn't have it any other way. And so we started in May. We were down for a couple months with the strikes, and then resumed in December and shot through January. And then we did the director's cut period, which is the 10 weeks after a shoot finishes. DGA mandates that a director gets 10 weeks to put their cut of the movie together, and we call that the director's cut. And so we did that in the south of France, where Ridley lives. And then we did all of the finishing. The last 6 months were in London, and on the far west side in the Twickenham Film Studios. And it was a whirlwind production doing movies like this.
How long were you out of town?
Yeah, more or less about a year. 15 months is basically what it was.
Your wife Jenny's here. Jenny,
yes.
what do you think of that?
Round of applause for Jenny, everybody.
What do you think about having them gone for that long?
Yeah, exactly. It's certainly a challenge.
A lot of VFX.
Yep.
Tell us about the VFX workflow, and you must have your hands full.
Yeah,
coordinating all that.
Right. So our show, I think the number landed somewhere around 1,100 visual effects shots, which a lot of the big Marvel movies and stuff, you're getting up into like the 3,000 territory. But there's plenty of practical things that we have in the movie, but the visual effects were heavy duty, especially with the CG animals. So week one in Morocco, we were doing because Ridley just multitasks everything. We did both so the movie begins with this Numidian battle sequence, which was all shot on the desert, and they needed to add water, basically. And then also the same week, we shot the baboons sequence where Lucius fights the baboons. And those were put right up front because visual effects were going to need every bit of time to make that stuff work. And so it's a really complicated dance between the visual effects supervisor and the other production department heads to make sure they get all of the plates that are needed. And then Claire and I have two fabulous visual effects editors, Michael Chung and Jenna Chung, who are immediately doing comps for us and trying to make it as screenable as possible, because also, like I was saying, we have the first full cut ready for Ridley, usually within a week or two. It does need to be kind of like a decent looking and sounding cut. So we are constantly kind of, updating things, and we're getting comps from the VFX editors, plus the sound team had already been on doing some dialogue editing, and composer Harry Gregson Williams had already provided some music to us, so that the first time Ridley watches the movie is the single most important screening for us, because it guides, what his feeling toward the film is, and to stay positive and to realize there's a movie there, and then we just get to work. So on the visual effects side of it, they are hitting the ground running, and we were having to turn over sequences like, a week later, basically. Like the baboons, that was Claire's baby, and she had a full cut of it within a couple of days, and Ridley would come see us on the Saturday, give notes, we would tweak stuff, and then we were already turning it over to visual
Well,
effects.
I understand he uses a lot of storyboards.
Yes.
Do you get involved? Do you pre-edit with the storyboards, or?
Right. So Ridley is very famous because he's an artist, like a literal artist and painter, for drawing all of the storyboards for all of his movies, all of the shots. They're called Ridleygrams, and they're fabulous pieces of art. Like, he is a genuine artist, and we see the storyboards, but he is not one that wants us to like have the sequence cut together with the boards. And we also don't use previs because he just trusts us to do it. He has storyboarded every frame, but like when you've got 12 cameras, it's not like he's done 12 storyboards for each shot that he came up with on the day. But for the principal A camera or B camera, he's definitely storyboarded everything.
And another set of eyes.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
What else can you tell us about Ridley? It's a pretty exciting.
Well,
guy to
so
work with.
he's about to turn 87 in a
Wow.
week, which is bananas. Yeah, and he is without question probably the most creative person I've ever met in my life. And he's got an amazing engine of energy, and he doesn't stop. So like there's umpteen different projects that might be the next one. And I was joking to Jim earlier. It's kind of like the bat phone ringing when he calls, like, all right, just tell us when and where to show up, and we'll be there. So it's definitely the honor of my career to get to work with him and get to work with Claire. And it's wild how I got there. Basically, like I'd been an assistant for a really long time, and when I was still on Facebook, there was an assistant editors group that I was a part of that had like job posts for higher profile things. And in 2018, it was like Ridley Scott, Claire Simpson, first assistant editor, South Africa TV series, and I was like, hell yeah, let's go for it. And because with Claire, I used to work with this other legendary editor named Joe Hutching, who used to be Claire's assistant back on Wall Street in 1987. And so that went a long way for me to just get the job with her. And so I started Raised by Wolves as her first assistant, and they shot Ridley's 2 episodes in sequence. And so all that meant is by the time they got to the second episode, Claire was a little bit underwater on the footage and still needed to keep working on the first episode. And she just gave me opportunities to be like, hey, do you want to start assembling some of these scenes from the second episode? And so I would do that. I would show it to her. She'd give feedback, and she liked what I was doing. And she was comfortable enough for me to show the scenes to Ridley and to sit with Ridley. And the collaboration just blossomed from there, so that I was additional editor on Raised by Wolves and Last Duel and Gucci before she promoted me with Ridley's blessing on Napoleon.
Tell us about duration of the films, because they're getting pretty long.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Though I'm happy to say Gladiator II is shorter than the first movie, and so like we had a really crazy experience on Napoleon because. So the Napoleon screenplay was 130 pages, but it had 239 scenes in it, and like some of them, because it's been kind of reported that there was the writing changed frequently on Napoleon. It sure did, and like there would be things where it'd be like exterior Battle of Trafalgar, and then it just says the Battle of Trafalgar happens. So like the first cut of that movie was almost 5 hours long, and we were never going to do a 5-hour movie. It's just like the Battle of Waterloo was twice as long just because there were more shots. It's not like we were telling more story or anything like that. So like when we turned in the director's cut to the studio, and when I say director's cut, I mean that initial 10-week period after the shoot was done. It was 3 hours and 15 minutes, which the studio was like, you have 2.5 hours. That's what it is. And so that was long too. But I mean, it's a huge story to tell there.
And it's Ridley Scott.
Exactly. And so ironically, when it came time that they okayed doing a director's cut, we ended up almost exactly at the same place we were originally. So.
And how long is Napoleon?
Napoleon's 3 hours.
Well, the director's cut?
Director's cut is it's 3 hours and 15 minutes of movie plus another like 10 minutes of credits, because that's how it goes now. Like the credits on Gladiator II are 9.5 minutes long, which is wild.
Well, probably not too many people have had a chance to see it because
Yes.
it just came out Thursday. I did. I rushed out and saw it, and it was a packed theater, so I think it's going to be a pretty popular movie. But you brought up sharks, so I'm gonna use my joke. It's going to be going to give a new meaning to the term "jump the shark."
Yes, indeed. It's a very exciting sequence. The naval battle in the arena. Yes, indeed.
And just tell us a little bit about cutting the action. There's so much action in the movie. It's really exciting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an overwhelming thing for starters to just work on Ridley Scott movies. It's amazing, and like I was when I got bumped up on Napoleon, we had all these gigantic sequences there as well. And since he shoots with 12 cameras, I had to lean into the embarrassment of riches that it is, the luxury that it is, where if ever I'm looking for any shot, in the rhino sequence in Gladiator, it's like, oh, if only we had a shot of the rhino running from right to left this way, they've got it. They have literally everything. Oh, if only I had a drone shot, covering the action from this to that. It's an amazing thing. And those scenes are kind of the easier ones to do because it's just you have all the options where when you're cutting a dialogue scene, you have what you have basically. But thankfully, since he's got multi cameras on that too, it's not too hard to get around the sequence.
And there's some wonderful performances.
Yes.
Yeah. The lead and his name's escaping.
Yeah, Paul Mescal. Yeah,
yeah
he's
Mescal,
fabulous. He's a movie star.
That's great.
Yep.
And Washington.
Yep.
Denzel Washington.
Cutting Denzel Washington daily. Yeah.
He's going to be up for his third Oscar now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's embarrassment of riches there too. Like he's such a pro, and he gives you something different and interesting every single take, just to keep it fresh and keep it alive. And he is just eminently watchable always on the big screen. So we're lucky to have people like that in the movie.
Well, I highly recommend it, and I thank you so much, Sam, for coming in. And,
my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody.